I'm Jessica Birch from the AmeriCorps Vista Training Unit here at the Corporation for National and Community Service. Assisting me today off-screen in the producer role is Scott Weinrobe from Education Northwest. You'll see Scott in the chat and the Q&A to assist you during today's session and to help get your questions answered. Amy Kanata and I will be co-presenting today. Amy has been engaged in various national service projects at Education Northwest and has been working with VISTA since 2008. For the past 2.5 years, she has been focusing on supporting the work of VISTA supervisors by developing resources for the VISTA campus, designing and delivering webinars, and writing curriculum for the supervisor orientation. We would also like to welcome our guest speakers for today. Mindy Sturm is the Director of City of Charleston Mayor's Office for Children, Youth, and Families, which manages the AmeriCorps Vista project for the Charleston community. She has been with MOCYF since 2002, serving first as the Youth Programs Coordinator and Vista Project Supervisor, before being named Director in 2013. Katie Tumbleston is currently the Vista Project Supervisor for the Charleston Area Service Collaborative. She served as a Vista with the Mayor's Office for Children, Youth, and Families several years ago. Before coming into her role as the Vista Project Supervisor and Youth Programs Coordinator, Katie received her Master's in Public Administration. We will be hearing more from Mindy and Katie throughout the webinar today. So here's today's agenda. Here's what we hope you'll get out of this webinar. We'd like you to be able to recognize how you fit into the National Service Network, be able to explain the mission of VISTA and define capacity building through real-world examples, coordinate with your intermediary/sponsoring organization and create a contact shared task list to better organize your individual tasks and responsibilities, and also prepare for effective member management. To get us started today, I'm going to transition over to Amy. Amy, take it away.
Thank you, Jessica. Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Kanata with Education Northwest, and I'm excited to be here today with you because supporting VISTA supervisors and helping make your job easier is really one of my passions, part of my work that I just love. So thank you all for putting ideas into the chat panel about the focus of your role currently as a VISTA supervisor. I saw a lot of themes that really, I think, strengthen what we hope will happen for members. I saw themes around coaching members around their strengths, identifying areas where members may need additional training and support. I also saw a few folks reference the VISTA goals for their project and helping their members understand their VISTA assignment description. And then also just thinking about member development for the future and where those members will be headed once they exit their VISTA position. So everyone is busy and has a lot of focus on members, and that's what we love to hear. So today we're going to talk about your role as a sub-site supervisor, and I know we do have some what we call intermediaries or sponsoring supervisors joining us today as well, so we would just like to welcome everybody no matter what your role is as a supervisor. So let's take a look at how you fit into the VISTA family. So as you can see from this org chart, you reside within a very strong network made up of national programs across the country. Each state has a state office, and as you can see from the framework on the right-hand side, this is a good example of how many of our sub-site projects are structured. Of course, the number of sites and supervisors varies by project, but it shows you that you're within a network usually with an intermediary or sponsoring organization that has sponsored the project, and then sites oftentimes in different places in the state or even across the country. As a sub-site supervisor, you'll obviously work very closely with your intermediary organization or your sponsor to divvy up responsibilities of managing your VISTA project. As I mentioned, each partnership is different, so you want to communicate early and often with your intermediary contact so that you can outline both the roles and tasks that you're responsible for, as well as the things that the intermediary is responsible for. So in general, the intermediary is ultimately responsible for all aspects of the program, but the role of sub-site supervisors is crucial to success. So likely you'll share tasks with your intermediary, such as recruiting, interviewing, and selecting candidates, providing training opportunities for VISTAs, including on-site orientation and training. You'll be sharing the day-to-day supervision and support for members, including monitoring attendance and use of their leave days, and then collecting data for reports as instructed by your intermediary. So a little more about how you fit in. The relationship that you have with your VISTAs really does make an impact on your VISTA and helps shape your project. This is through your day-to-day interactions that lead to those long-term successes that we're all looking for. Many VISTAs tell us that the #1 influencer for them was their supervisor. So for supervisors, we hope that you'll consider it an honor to have the opportunity to work so closely with a VISTA, someone who we hope one day will name you as an influential mentor and person in their life. So let's hear from our first guest speaker, Mindy, about the influence of sub-site supervisors. Go ahead, Mindy.
Thank you, Amy. As the Charleston, South Carolina area VISTA sponsor, we are currently managing 26 VISTA placements and are entering our 5th year as the project sponsor. During this time, we have learned that the site supervisor is the key in making the VISTA year successful, and we experience the best outcomes for the member and for the site when we have a site supervisor who has the knowledge to guide the VISTA and takes the time to do so. Supervisors should devote at least 1 full hour per week with their VISTA member and should also maintain an open-door approach outside of the regularly scheduled meetings. And empowering the member to accomplish the work may require you to coach the member rather than direct them. And at times, supervisors will need to be the gatekeeper to the VISTA to shield them from being pulled into tasks that are not VAD-related. A strategy for helping with this is to introduce the VISTA to staff when their term begins, especially staff members who are key to completing the work of the VAD. And now I'll turn it back to Amy.
Thanks, Mindy. We're going to go ahead and visit the VISTA Campus website to take a look at a key document. And as you'll notice, the site includes dedicated sections for members, leaders, and supervisors. And of course, supervisors have their own section with a variety of resources. This site is really your go-to for resources to help manage your VISTA project and also connect with your peers. So we're going to go ahead and showcase some resources that were designed for intermediaries to work in partnership with their sub-site supervisors to help lay a foundation for project success. And we'll also post the link to this resource along with the recording of today's webinar. So Scott just shared a browser with you, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Working with Sub-Sites page. This is really a great place to begin your exploration of the VISTA campus. I want to direct you now to a checklist that will help you divvy up tasks between yourself and your intermediary. And this document includes links and resources for each task, so there's hyperlinks in there. So we encourage you to work with your intermediary to discuss and delegate tasks and also access resources on the VISTA campus to deepen your knowledge and identify tools. So as you can see, this document has places for notes as well as a place to sort of check off who's doing what. All right, so Scott, we can go ahead and go back. So just so you know, we have formatted the webinar to follow the checklist, so you will get an idea of the different elements of the checklist as we go through. And in fact, the good news is we've already checked off one item on your list, and that is to understand the org chart for VISTA. So next I'm going to go ahead and talk about some key background information that everyone needs to know about VISTA and the Corporation for National and Community Service. So one of our main goals today is to examine the mission of the VISTA program. And with that in mind, we'll take a look at the history and key facts, the VISTA mission, and the role of VISTA members. As a sub-site supervisor of VISTA members, it's really important for you to be familiar with the background of AmeriCorps Vista. Your members are going to arrive at their site with a good understanding of the VISTA program, and your understanding and background of the mission will help both you and your VISTA begin and operate with the same focus. So as many of you know, VISTA stands for Volunteers in Service to America, and was started in 1965 as part of the War on Poverty, with the mission to build capacity of nonprofit organizations and communities to help bring individuals and communities out of poverty. In 1993, President Clinton started AmeriCorps, and at that point, VISTA was incorporated into the AmeriCorps network of programs. This year is the 50th anniversary of VISTA. Happy birthday. There are 3 ways that individuals serve through the VISTA program. Members serve full-time for 1 year. That's probably the most common one and what many of you have. We also have members that serve 8 to 10 weeks as summer associates, and then also members that serve as VISTA leaders, and those are usually second-year VISTAs, and that is a program that they apply for, and usually they, in that project, coach other members at their sites. So to truly get behind the VISTA mission, it helps to know a little bit about the impact that VISTAs have made. Since 1965, over 192,000 VISTAs have served local organizations to both strengthen communities and help people escape poverty. Last year alone, over 7,000 VISTAs served with 800 anti-poverty programs. VISTAs helped raise over $2 million in funds and in-kind contributions for anti-poverty efforts. And then also, they mobilized over 1.7 million community volunteers who provided 13.5 million hours. These numbers are very impressive, and it's just, I think, heartwarming for you to know that you're part of this amazing program that builds capacity in communities across the country. So we hear that term a lot in VISTA, capacity building. Let's take a look at what that means within the VISTA context. So you likely already know that your member's role is to serve as a capacity builder. So let's do a quick poll to gauge our current understanding of capacity building in the VISTA context. And Scott's going to go ahead and launch that, and we'll give you guys a few minutes to answer here. So your options are capacity building for VISTA members is to create, expand, or strengthen an organization's systems or processes. B, provide services to the identified recipients or clients of a program. C, transfer knowledge, products, and relationships to the staff and volunteers of the program site. D, carry out clerical work and administrative tasks of the site. E, I'm not sure, but I'm looking forward to learning more. So let's see, answers are coming in, everyone's voting. I'm going to do about 10 more seconds, so go ahead and get your votes in if you haven't done that yet. Okay, we're going to have Scott go ahead and publish our results for us.
It'll be just a second, Amy, and then the results should appear.
It's calculating. Computers are not as fast as we think they are. Okay, so it looks like good job, everybody. The majority of you answered A, C, or E, that capacity building is to create, expand, or strengthen an organization's systems or processes, and to transfer knowledge, products, and relationships to staff and volunteers of the program site. So let's take a few more minutes to define capacity building a little bit further. When the VISTA members focus on building capacity, it really does allow your organization and the community to sustain the VISTA's project activities once the project period has ended, and this is the main goal we're looking for. Ensuring the sustainability of a VISTA project is the supervisor's responsibility along with the member. The VISTA members contribute to this process by building capacity of the organization and the community through the activities listed in their VAD. So this concept can be a little bit tricky for people, so let's take a look at a couple examples. In contrast to capacity building, direct service activities provide assistance directly to clients in short term, but don't really leave any lasting impacts on capacity. The role of the supervisor is to make sure that VISTAs focus on capacity building and that they do not engage in direct service activities, and if they do, it's on a very, very limited basis. So we can learn a little bit more about community through another example. Let's take a look at a scenario about Habitat for Humanity. So let's imagine that we have a member who's been placed at a new Habitat for Humanity chapter, and the goal is to help build the volunteer program. So thinking about this role, we have a chat activity for you. If you had a member serving at a Habitat, what type of activities do you think this member might do? Go ahead and enter your ideas into the chat box, and be sure you send your ideas to all participants. What capacity building activities might the VISTA do for Habitat? And this is a chat activity. If you don't see your chat panel, you may have to click on the little icon at the top with the chat bubble.
All right, everybody, this is Jessica, and Amy, we're getting some great answers here. So create a volunteer application. Other things are recruiting volunteers and training them. Let's see here, building relationships, setting up a database. Also doing an impact survey was a good one that I saw here. Create materials for outreach to volunteers in the community. A lot of these are great. A lot of these are under the same lines, which is great. Let's see. Plan to do a survey on the district's needs and develop service learning projects accordingly. Great. Increase community awareness. And this is great too, a post-volunteer survey / evaluation, which is always great. And make a list of all possible vendors and community partners. Yeah,
so there's a lot wrapped up is what I'm hearing in helping to build a volunteer program, and those are all great examples of capacity building activities that we would want to see VISTA members doing when they're building a volunteer program. Thank you so much, Jessica, for help on that. So let's go ahead and move on and just quickly review some of the main components. Again, we have things like volunteer task descriptions, volunteer database, policies and procedures. Perhaps they would work on the volunteer training plan. And they may do things that are more administrative, like helping order materials for next month's projects. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mindy, who's going to share a little bit about some of her recipes for success that she's seen over the years with her work. Go ahead, Mindy.
Thank you, Amy. As we begin to go deeper into the components of being a supervisor, we wanted to share what we call our recipe for success, and we see the best outcomes when the following factors are in place. A strong project that is a priority for the agency or organization, a strong VAD that is both manageable and actionable, a selected VISTA with the necessary skills to achieve the goals of the VAD, and a dialed-in supervisor with the time and the commitment needed for success. And now I'll turn it back to Amy to go into some of these aspects in greater detail.
Thanks, Mindy. I think it's always great to hear some examples from the field, so we really appreciate that. So let's talk about the VAD. As you know, the VAD is the position description for each VISTA member. And in addition to the fact that the VAD is a CNCS requirement, it's also a powerful guide and planning tool for implementing most major responsibilities, including selecting a VISTA candidate, guiding and supporting members, and also assessing member performance. VADs help focus our expectations for VISTAs and also define realistic goals for one person to accomplish within their VISTA service year. The VAD is also a supervision and coaching tool. It informs the supervisor on how to work with their member, and what to focus on as far as professional development. Clearly written activities in a VAD will help VISTAs identify additional skills, knowledge, and resources that they'll need to accomplish their expected activities. And it's also a chance for them to communicate those skills that are needed with their supervisors. At PSO, the VISTAs spend some time with their VADs, and they take a look at their VADs with a critical eye and help identify where they might need additional training. And they record that in a document called their Individual Development Plan. So expect, if you haven't met your members yet, that they'll be coming to site with what we call an Individual Development Plan and asking for support around areas that they may need additional training. So let's go ahead and turn it over to Jessica from the Corporation for National Community Service, who's going to talk a little bit about benefits, rules, and regulations for members. Go ahead, Jessica.
Thanks, Amy. So throughout your VISTA service year, they will more than likely have questions related to their VISTA benefits. We recommend that VISTAs use the VISTA campus to learn more about their benefits. But if they have additional questions, they should contact the VISTA Member Support Unit, or the VMSU. The VMSU, contacted through the National Service Hotline, manages the VISTA service benefits, and they can help with issues that arise before, during, and after a member's service. So speaking of the VMSU, let's discuss some of their support areas. First off, end-of-service benefits. The VMSU can assist VISTAs with questions related to using their education award, how to complete a forbearance or interest accrual request. With regard to travel, the VMSU handles candidates' relocation and close-of-service travel reimbursements. If a candidate has questions about their reimbursements or what they need to do in order to get reimbursed, the VMSU will be able to assist them. The VMSU also provides travel support for emergency situations, such as a death in the family. Initial requests for emergency travel should go through the state office, but the VMSU will ultimately book travel for the member or handle their reimbursement. Another support area of the VMSU are with regard to member service letters. Most service letters are available to members while they are in service or once they end service. Members should try and access their currently serving letter and income disregard letter through their my.americorps.gov account while in service. Once members have ended service, they will be able to access their verification of service letter. If a member runs into any issues with accessing these letters, the VMSU can send them a letter directly. The VMSU can also help with child care. Most issues that VISTA members have with child care is related to their application being denied or that they don't have the proper documentation. VISTA members should work with Gap Solutions Incorporated, who is the AmeriCorps child care provider, to resolve any issues with the application. If they need additional assistance, VMSU staff will work with Gap Solutions to get issues resolved. VMSU can also help with the health benefits plan. Healthcare is always a topic that generates a lot of questions. If your VISTAs have questions about the benefits or where to access more information, the VMSU will be able to assist them and direct them to the appropriate resources. Last but not least, forms. If your members have questions about how to fill out or edit their forms on their my.americorps.gov account, the VMSU will be able to assist. As a VISTA supervisor, it is important to know the rules and regulations that you as a supervisor must adhere to, as well as the rules and regulations your VISTAs must follow. If a member violates one of the terms or conditions, you as a sub-site supervisor should contact the VISTA project director immediately. From there, the project director will contact the corporation state office. Different violations have different repercussions, and for the protection of the project and any other members on board, it's critical to act promptly. In general, VISTAs cannot engage in political activity, religious activity, lobbying, or union organizing as part of their service or while perceived to be a VISTA. They can go to rallies or attend church services on their own non-VISTA time, but cannot engage in either type of activity while serving or while identifying as a VISTA. A few other things we wanted to talk about with regard to time and attendance. As a supervisor, you'll want to monitor your VISTA's time and attendance. Usually, VISTAs serve about 40 hours a week, which is considered full-time at most agencies. VISTAs are also entitled to 10 days of annual leave and 10 sick days, and should receive any federal holidays recognized by your agency that the rest of the staff receive. A few words on nepotism. A person cannot hold a position of a VISTA member if a member of his or her family exercises supervisory authority over the person. Also, a person cannot hold the position of a VISTA supervisor if he or she is related to the corporation program official responsible for the VISTA project. Now, with regard to early terminations and removal from a project. If something comes up and a member decides to leave service early, you should contact your project director immediately. From there, the project director should contact the state office. Following the early termination process is critical because it affects payroll, their future ability to serve, and the determination of benefits. If a situation arises where a VISTA just isn't working out or might need to be removed or terminated, the sponsor can request the member's removal from their project, so they can't simply terminate a member or demand their removal from a VISTA project. There are a variety of reasons that a match between a member and a project might not work out. It'll be up to the state office to review the documentation submitted and the project director to determine if a member needs to be terminated or if they might be able to remain a VISTA and transfer to a new project. Please read the Supervisor's Handbook on the VISTA campus for specific steps and contact your project director immediately if you think you might anticipate needing to request a member's removal. It is important to remember that you don't have the authority to remove a member from a project. Only the state office can do so. There's a legal process that must be followed, and there's also an appeals process available to members to ensure their input is shared and heard. In general, it's best to avoid getting into this situation in the first place by providing strong level of support to members, using effective member management practices, and providing timely feedback to members, and documenting any challenges if problems come up. The first rule is always to call the project director when you anticipate a problem might arise or if you know a member will terminate early. So I suspect that you may have some questions about the areas I just covered. You can ask a question using the Q&A panel located to the right of your screen, and we will answer them at the end of the webinar, along with questions that come on over the phone. Now that you have an idea of the things that you need to know, Amy is going to review some common to-do items. Amy?
Thanks, Jessica. So let's take some time to review some of the tasks that sub-site supervisors are often in charge of in their role. And to start, I want to go ahead and take another poll to see what you're currently responsible for. So Scott just launched a poll. And the prompts in the poll are, my responsibilities include, and you can select all that apply. Choice 1, recruiting candidates. 2, selecting and screening candidates. 3, or otherwise known as C, conducting on-site orientation and training. D, meeting with candidates regularly for coaching sessions. E, submitting reports. And F, I'm not sure yet, but look forward to learning more.
Amy, it looks like we should have just had an all of the above option on this poll.
Good point. All right, so it looks like from what I'm seeing right now, and I can sort of see the numbers come in, you all are responsible for all of these items, it looks like. We'll give you a couple more seconds to answer, and then Scott will calculate results and publish those for everyone to see. That'll take a few minutes. Yeah, there's a variety of different roles, and depending on the role of your intermediary, you may have all of these or only a few. So let's take a look at the responses. So it looks like the majority of you are conducting on-site orientation and training, which makes sense. You're meeting with your candidates regularly is another top role, as well as selecting and screening candidates. Fewer people are working on recruitment, and also around submitting reports, fewer folks are doing that. But again, it just depends on how your project is structured and how you divvy up that work with your intermediary. So let's take a look at recruitment and selection, which, as you can see, some of you are doing, not all of you, but some of you. So step one of the recruitment process is to really orient yourself to the format and purpose of each member's VAD. So as you get ready to recruit, you want to use the VAD to guide you. Since the VAD guides the VISTA's year and helps define the type of person you're looking for, the VAD is the basis for the service opportunity listing that you will be putting into MyAmeriCorps. This is what the members will see when they apply for your project. You may be asked to participate in the member recruitment and selection process by your intermediary. Be sure to work closely with them to outline the specific tasks and roles. For example, some sub-sites take on all of the tasks with recruitment, while others only take on a few of those tasks. In the task list that we showed you at the beginning of the session, it gives you some places to frame conversations and roles with your intermediary around what your responsibilities are for recruitment, along with links to resources for your member recruitment. So now we're going to hear from Katie, who's going to share some insights that she's learned about recruiting members. Take it away, Katie.
Thanks, Amy. As Jessica mentioned in the beginning of the call, I have been the project supervisor for the Charleston Area Service Collaborative for almost 2 years now, and I'm thrilled to be on this call today and share in our experience. So with that, in our experience, the toll taken on the site, the member, and the project supervisor is high when the match is not right. Having a VISTA who is either not committed to service or who does not have the personal effectiveness qualities such as ambition, initiative, and a willingness to learn can be more harmful to a site than not having a VISTA at all. To avoid this, supervisors should be thoughtful about the skills needed to do the job, should confirm candidates' commitment to serve, should conduct behavioral interviews with multiple candidates before making a final selection, and should call references in addition to the ones available in eGrant. Now let me hand the presentation back to Amy, who will be talking more about the importance of one-on-one supervision of your VISTA.
Thanks, Katie. It's great to hear what you guys have seen around recruitment over the years. So earlier we touched on your role as a supervisor and what that means, but we want to stress again that coaching, mentoring, and support is really crucial to a member's success. Here are a few facts from a recent study conducted by our partners, JBS International. As you can see from the statistics, the one-on-one supervisory relationship is really, really crucial. We suggest that you meet with your members weekly in order to check in with them and help them stay on track. As you can see, those who met early and often with their supervisors felt more successful. So let's hear a little more about coaching VISTAs from Katie. Take it away, Katie.
Thanks, Amy. So as Amy mentioned, empowering your VISTA to accomplish the work may be one of the most important yet difficult roles as a supervisor. While many VISTAs will come to the project with the motivation and initiative that is so important to the work, it is vital that you work towards the end goal together, to check in frequently and to talk through each step of the project. You will see we have included on the slide a few tips for engaging your VISTA in a meaningful project-related conversation. You will find that the more you do this up front and the more readily available you are for your members throughout the year, the better the project outcome and member experience will be. Now back to you, Amy.
Thanks, Katie. So coaching and support really does start with your on-site orientation and training, otherwise known as OSOT. Onboarding as well as OSOT are very important because they help the member settle in faster and also provide them with the basic knowledge and skills needed to get a good start with your project. So let's go ahead and take a look at some typical OSOT topics for VISTA members. Here's a sample list of topics. These came from a detailed checklist that resides within the Supervisor Orientation Workbook, as well as under the OSOT section of the VISTA campus. I mention the workbook because this is something that supervisors who go to training receive, but all of you can also access this important resource that includes all of the documents from the face-to-face training. And Scott's going to go ahead, oh, he already did. He posted the link to the workbook in the chat panel, and you can also find it under that Working with Subsites section of the Vista campus. So we're going to go ahead and go back to Katie, who's going to talk about some examples of how OSOT can be formatted for multi-site projects. Go ahead, Katie.
Great, thanks, Amy. So as an intermediary, we host a day-long OSOT where we orient our new cohort to the collaborative and invite our sub-site supervisors to attend to begin discussing the work with their members. This also provides a wonderful opportunity for sub-site supervisors and VISTAs to network and connect with similar sites doing similar work. So in addition to our day-long OSOT, we also encourage our sub-site supervisors to orient their members over a 3 to 4 week comprehensive process. While the VISTA member is likely eager to get to work, he or she will only be effective if they have a true understanding of the organization as a whole and their place or connection to the organization and its connection to the community. A key component of orientation should be the context for poverty and your specific community or target population. We found that VISTA members generally come to us with a greater understanding of generational poverty and the like from the PSO. However, they are often looking for the context for where they're serving locally. We also stress the importance of cultural competence training so that members are better prepared to work with or on behalf of your community members. And it's our suggestion, if you can connect to a poverty simulation or an organization that is hosting one, we suggest that you give access for your members to that. This is a great way for members to experience the trials and tribulations of poverty in the community and to meet or learn of the various resources available or even lack thereof. So now let me hand things back to Jessica, who's going to review reporting and evaluation details and wrap up the webinar.
Thanks so much, Katie. So we're going to spend some time recapping the reports that are required by CNCS. These are reporting requirements CNCS has for your project director and the deadlines. However, your project director will set their own requirements and deadlines for you. We will briefly go over different reports so that you are aware of what kind of data and information your project director may ask for. So the first report we're going to go over is the sponsor verification report. This report is submitted biweekly, and this report is meant to account for the whereabouts of the VISTAs. This is an important legal responsibility as it affects payroll, the Department of Treasury, and fiscal audits. The next report is the Project Progress Report, or the PPR. Depending on if you are part of a new project or an existing project, your project director will need to report quarterly or semi-annually. To find out where your project falls, please contact your project director. Sponsors report on project accomplishments throughout the year with this report, and this report includes narratives for both members and supervisors about the progress of the project. The last report, one last thing, one quick note about progress reports. If you have great news of a VISTA's accomplishments, there is no need to wait until the end of the next quarter or to the middle of the year to let the project director know, and your state office for that matter. If your VISTA just won a big grant or hosted a large gala or was interviewed for the newspaper, the state office and your project director would love to hear about it. So please send those things up as they come. The last report we're going to go over is the VISTA Progress Report Supplement, or the VPRS. This report is submitted annually, and it tracks standardized information across all corporation programs. The VPRS also focuses on building capacity, and this report is generally submitted annually on October 31st. As I mentioned before, your project director may come to you for data and information regarding your VISTA members and the work they are doing. So you'll want to ensure that you have established tracking tools to collect the data that's relevant for your program. There is a new mobile tool available for your VISTAs to collect data, and it's called the AmeriCorps VISTA Impact app. More information about the Impact app can be found on the VISTA campus, and Scott is also going to post a link to it in the chat. Like I said before, These are the reporting requirements CNCS has for your project director, as well as these deadlines are for your project director. However, the project director will set their own requirements and deadlines for you. So if you have any questions about these reports, please follow up with your director. So, where to find the resources on the VISTA campus? So, the Campus Self-Study Guide, the Training Sub-Site Supervisor Syllabus. While this resource is directed at intermediary sponsors, it is a useful tool for sub-site supervisors, as it includes a pretty comprehensive list of various need-to-know items. As we mentioned earlier, the VISTA Sponsor and Sub-Site Supervisor Major Tasks at a Glance checklist is also a great resource that is available on the VISTA campus. Last but not least, the supervisor orientation materials, such as the workbook, the visual aids, and the activities. These resources are provided at the in-person supervisor's orientation and are also available on the VISTA campus. These are just a few of the many resources you may find useful. We will include links to these resources along with the recording of this session. So, you just went and participated in this webinar, but now what? Here are a few next steps we would like you to consider. First, create a list of questions that you have for your intermediary. We've given a lot of information for you guys, so I'm sure you have some questions for your intermediary. Next, set up a time to discuss the VISTA Sponsor and Sub-Site Supervisor Major Tasks at a Glance document with your intermediary. Then, block time on your calendar for regular check-in sessions with your VISTA members. Also, participate in other supervisor webinars or watch webinars on demand on the VISTA campus. And last but not least, connect with other supervisors on the VISTA Cafe forum. You will need to be logged into the VISTA campus to access the forums, but this is a great way to get peer support.
Thanks, Jessica. I really like those next steps. It feels like it helps us hone in on what to do next. Scott is going to go ahead and open the evaluation. So on the right side of your screen, you'll find a quick poll where you can share your feedback about the webinar. Please take a moment to answer those questions, as we'd like to be able to improve these webinars, and your input helps us do that in the future. So Jessica, I'm going to turn it over to you so that we can move into the Q&A portion of the session.
Thanks, Amy. So as we mentioned earlier, we've given you a lot to think about, and now it's time for your questions. You can ask a question using the Q&A panel located to the right of your screen. I'll also ask our operator to let us know how to ask a question by phone. Operator, are you there?
Yes, if participants would like to ask a question over the phone, you may press star then 1 and record your name. Once again, to ask a question over the phone, you may press star 1 and record your name.
Thank you so much. So while we're waiting for questions to come in over the phone, we did have some questions come up throughout the webinar, so I just wanted to go over some of those. So the first question that came in was, VISTAs who work on the weekends, how does the sponsor comp that time? So with regard to time, VISTAs, unlike other AmeriCorps programs, it's not a certain number of hours that VISTAs have to fill, but they should be working full-time, 40 hours. So if, for example, you have a VISTA who one of their projects is taking place on a Saturday and they're going to work a full day Saturday, they might want to see if maybe they can just take a half day on that Monday or something. It's definitely something that you would need to work out with internally, but just to make sure that they're serving full time. And if there are instances where they do have to work, 50 hours one week, definitely work with them to see if maybe they can take a couple of half days, or just make sure that they can take some time, just to make sure that they're not working, 60 hours in 1 week. All right. Operator, do we have any questions coming in over the phone?
We have no questions on the phone at this time.
All right. So we do have another question here in the chat. It's from Jocelyn. So Jocelyn asks, does the intermediary have an OSOT for all members too? So I'm gonna send this one over to Katie and Mindy to see what you guys do at your organization. Do you have a separate OSOT or OSOT for your VISTAs, or do the sub-sites do those individually?
We begin with a one-day long orientation that acclimates them to our project, and we actually follow that up 2 weeks later with our first monthly meeting. We try to do that earlier rather than later. We have found that once they come to us, after that one day, they're really excited and eager to get to their sites. So we have in the past done a 2-day orientation, but we really found that they were, like I said, eager to get there. But then we bring them back quickly to try to answer any questions that have come up. But I think for sites to actually do the longest part of the orientation is most valuable, coming back to us always with any questions, mainly on what we've gone over today about policies and procedures and that type of thing that we may be better situated to answer.
Great, thank you so much. So hopefully that answers the question. If there is some clarification needed or any other questions about what is allowed and what's not, please feel free to either type it in the chat in the Q&A or give us a call. So there are a few requests coming in the chat for to go over the new outside employment policy with regard to VISTA members. So as most of you know, on May 3rd, the VISTA program revised its policy on outside employment to make VISTA service accessible to the widest possible range of candidates, regardless of their economic status. There are some great guides that I'm going to post into the chat now. It's a link to the VISTA campus where it has resources about the outside employment policy. There are definitely a few nuances that are harder to go over in a webinar format, so definitely take a look at these FAQs. And if you have any questions, there is a web address, an email address that you can send questions to, or you can always contact your state office with more questions. But this is a great resource if you have just some general questions about the outside employment policy. So, operator, do we have any questions on the phone?
We have no questions at this time. However, I would like to remind participants to ask a question. You may press star, then 1 and record your name.
Great, thank you. Scott, Amy, did you come across any questions that I may have missed?
Hi, Jessica. Yeah, thanks. There were a couple of questions that came in through the chat asking about, I think what Katie mentioned with reference to poverty simulations. So wanting to get a little bit more information about poverty simulations, who would usually run those, and how folks might be able to find poverty simulations in their local area.
Sure. So we actually partnered with our United Way locally. And our United Way, I believe, worked in coordination with a local agency called the Charleston County Human Services Commission, who they've coordinated the curriculum in the past, and we're very familiar with such simulations. Also, our local university, the College of Charleston, hosts them regularly, so I would recommend contacting any university and or United Way in the area to learn more about how maybe you could bring the curriculum to your area if you don't already have access to it.
Great, thank you so much. As Rosie pointed out in the chat, there were a few questions that I did miss as well. So someone, let's see, Kendra put in here that she is a site supervisor, and if she's going to be out of the office, who should she have her VISTAs report to in her absence? So in the instance that you're going to be out of town, you're going on vacation or something like that, short term, definitely designate somebody within your office if possible, someone who's familiar with the program, someone who knows the work of what your VISTA is doing, to be that person that they report to in the short term, I'm sorry. You should also notify your project director that, hey, I'm going to be out of town, or I'm going to be out, so-and-so is going to be, that my VISTA is going to be reporting to so-and-so. If you are going to be out for an extended period of time, I would definitely talk to your project director and see what they recommend. They might request that the VISTA report directly to them, but more than likely they will want someone appointed at the site directly. But definitely just keep them in the loop with all of those kind of changes or those things that are going on. I'm going to ask again, are there any questions on the phone, operator?
No questions at this time.
Okay, great. Sorry, I'm just looking through here. I'm reading through here to see if any other questions. Scott, Amy, do you see any that I've missed here?
Jessica, let's see. Upendra asked if he could get if I could get clarification on the distinction between an intermediary and a lead agency or sponsoring organization.
Yeah, so, and Scott, is it possible to go back to one of the earlier slides where we show the org chart?
Yeah, of course. Let me go back to that.
Slide 7.
Okay, all right, let me take a look here. So, and the question was, sorry, let me pull this up here.
Oh, Jessica, it was what is an intermediary? Is it the same as the sponsoring organization, or in our case, a lead agency?
So, and I might not understand the question fully. So the intermediary is trying to find the best way to explain it. So if there is, for an example, if there is an organization in your community who has the capacity to support multiple projects and support multiple VISTAs, they may, oversee the VISTA project as it relates to many different sites. That would be someone who's an intermediary. They're the ones who apply directly for the VISTA funds and all of those sorts of things, and it's through them. And then the subsites are obviously where the VISTAs are placed. They're under that intermediary. And that's kind of what that distinction is. I'm not sure if that answers the question, or if Mindy and Katie, you might, since you guys are an intermediary, have a better way to explain that, on how you explain that to your subsites.
Well, I think in looking at the slide, it looks as though as a single site you could be also a sponsoring organization. The only distinction, and forgive me if I'm reiterating what you've indicated, so we are a multi-site project, so we have sites within our project that have a variety of different projects and that type of thing, but there are also projects to which VISTA members are allocated, and maybe 10 VISTA members under that project would basically accomplish the same VAD, like at, say, a Habitat for Humanity type situation. But our VISTA members, and we call ourselves, we probably use the terms interchangeably, intermediary and project sponsor, but our subsites are really a variety of nonprofits in the community that are working towards the goals of our project.
No, that sums it up great. Thank you so much. Definitely more succinct than how I put it, so I appreciate that. And I hope for whoever's question that was on the phone or in the chat, I hope that helps answer that question. Let's see here. Let's see. So Julie here, how do VISTAs track leave and sick time? So there's not a standard. There's not like a standard timesheet that VISTA has that they need to submit to their sponsoring organization. If there is a certain way that you want your VISTAs to submit their time on the days they come in, what time they come in, and how many hours they work, they should definitely follow that. But you'll definitely want to have some mechanism to track that, even if it's just draft an Excel spreadsheet and they send it to you biweekly, however you want to track that. But there's no standardized form that VISTA has that someone needs to track hours with.
Jessica, this is Amy.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to do a quick time check. We have about 1 minute left with our official session today, but we do still have quite a few questions.
Okay.
So I just wanted to say to folks, I know supervisors are busy and may have other meetings. If you can stay another 10 minutes or so for questions, we'd love to have you. If you need to jump off, we will be providing the recording of this webinar in about roughly 10 days, and we'll email you with the recording. So if you missed some of the Q&A, you can listen to it later. Back to you, Jessica.
Thanks, Amy. I appreciate it. So Monica here has a question. If a VISTA is field-based, is the sub-site obligated to provide technology for them, or should they be asked to provide their own, such as a cell phone or a laptop or Wi-Fi cards? So I'm not sure what you mean by field-based, but the organization, the sub-site or the organization, the intermediary, the organization would need to provide that technology. So if there's something that they need a laptop to use for their VISTA duties to fulfill their VAD, that needs to be provided by the sub-site or the intermediary. If you as a sub-site are having difficulties being able to provide that to your VISTAs, it's definitely something you'll want to talk to your intermediary about. When an application for VISTAs is submitted, one of the questions on there is, do you have the capacity to provide, laptop technology needs, those sorts of things for the VISTAs? So that is a key requirement that projects can provide those. So if you are having trouble as an organization providing those, definitely talk to your intermediary and see if there's anything that they can do to help. So let's see, we have another question here. Does a sub-site organization have to provide transportation to the VISTAs? So, daily commuting, no, your VISTA should make arrangements to commute daily to their project site on their own. With regard to transportation, if they're going to be serving at multiple schools, setting up tutoring programs, for example, and they need to travel to multiple schools, it's not something that you need to provide. It's not that you have to provide them a service vehicle or like a local transit car, but if you are requiring them to, if they are required to have a vehicle for service or to use a personally owned vehicle, not a personally owned vehicle, a sponsor-owned vehicle, or take local transit, your VISTAs may submit what's called a V81 form in their my.americorps.gov account. If they submit that and if you review it and you approve it and the state office approves it and all of those sorts of things, if your organization has a process for reimbursing VISTAs or your employees for mileage or for local transit costs that they incur for work-related activities, or in this case, service-related activities, you would need to set up how that would work for reimbursement. But if you have any questions specifically about the V81 form, and if a specific situation, like I have this VISTA who's going to be doing X, Y, and Z, do I need to provide something, or is this something that they would need to use an organization vehicle for? Talk to your state office, because they'll definitely be able to help with that.
Jessica, this is Amy. We had another question that came through the chat a little bit earlier, and the question was, can you summarize or refer us to information about health care benefits for members?
Yeah, so, and I apologize that I missed that question. So the health care, what I can do, and let me pull this up here, I will post the website's link into the chat. So the AmeriCorps Health, the healthcare stuff can be found on imglobal.com, and I just posted the link to the healthcare website to the chat. This kind of goes over what different benefits VISTA offers, either the healthcare allowance for those VISTAs who have health insurance, and the VISTA healthcare benefit for those the healthcare plan for those VISTAs who are exempt from having to have health insurance under the Affordable Care Act. So this website is available to all members on their my.americorps.gov account. And this kind of gives an overview of what the different plans are. You can also do a live chat on this website, which is great. I've done it. It really is live chat. And you can have any of your questions answered that way.
Another question that came through the chat, I don't believe it's been answered, is do I as a sub-site supervisor have to approve VISTA timesheets?
So, and this might be a specific project question. So as I mentioned before, there's not a standard process for approving timesheets. There's not like a standard VISTA timesheet that someone fills out. So, so if your organization has a certain timesheet for your employees, and you include the VISTA on that just for tracking purposes, just for seamless coverage there, if you're the supervisor there, and the intermediary or your project director is okay with you approving that, then you should be good to go. It sounds like it's a specific project-related question. If it's something that your project director is supplying to you directly saying, hey, we have all of our sub-sites fill out this timesheet for their VISTAs, definitely call them and contact them for clarification about who can and cannot approve those.
So related to that, Jessica, how does that tie in with the sponsor verification, which is submitted biweekly?
Yeah, so so the sponsor verification form it's a form through eGrants that the VISTA project director and you as a sub-site, it all really depends on roles in eGrants. If you have the role to send or to, I guess, fill out those sponsor verification reports, then you can definitely go in an eGrants and do that if your intermediary gave you those permissions. But more than likely, your project director is going to need to fill those out. There are the timesheet that if you as an organization are providing or something separate, and the sponsor verification report, they're kind of, I guess, tracking the same thing. The sponsor verification report is just saying, yes, my VISTA was here, yes, they were serving all these days, yep, they were here. The timesheet, I guess, is kind of doing the same thing, saying, yeah, they were here for these days, this is how long they were there for, but that's not an official document, whereas the sponsor verification report is. You definitely want to make sure that those add up. So if this says, oh, I haven't seen my VISTA in 3 days, the timesheet says I don't know where they are, but the sponsor verification report says, yep, they were here this whole time, you definitely want to make sure that those match and that your intermediary is notified as soon as possible if there's anything that's not, the person hasn't been serving or they've been MIA or something like that, so that sponsor verification report can be filled out correctly.
Great, thanks, Jessica. And I saw another question in the chat from Lydia, and she was asking, I was hoping for some clarification on the reporting process. For reporting purposes, are reports done through VISTA Campus or through intermediaries?
Yeah, so thanks for the question, Lydia. So all these reports, the reports that I was talking about, the PPR, the VPRS, the sponsor verification report, those are all done through eGrants. So it's nothing that will be submitted through the VISTA Campus. There are definitely resources on the VISTA Campus about those reports, but those reports are not submitted through there. Who they're submitted through, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. It all depends on roles. So more than likely, you as a sub-site, you have a project director that you report about the progress of your VISTA project or your VISTAs to that person. So that data that would generally go for those reports will more than likely need to go to your project director so that they can compile one big report for the whole project and submit it through eGrants. Your project director may have a different preference on how that is submitted or when it's submitted. So I would definitely chat with them to see how they want it submitted and making sure that they have all the information they need. But that information would not go through VISTA Campus. It would always go through eGrants.
Jessica, thank you so much. Thank you for staying on. kind of extra time to answer some of these questions. I think we've managed to get through most of them. Maybe just one more quick question. Adrian asked us if we can kind of reiterate some of the best practices for ensuring that VISTAs complete their year of service successfully, and that might be a great note to end on. Gives us an opportunity to kind of reinforce the really the kind of critical importance of regular coaching and supervision meetings. But I wonder if you had other thoughts, or Amy or Katie or Mindy, that you wanted to share on that.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely going to, I guess, lob this one over to Mindy and Katie. Since you supervise the VISTAs directly, what are some things that you've seen that have definitely aid in members serving a successful year?
Well, I have to say that actually that's what our recipe for success was born out of, was in part situations where we saw some of those things not in place, and it made for a difficult year. So I really do think that having those factors in place, and you know, our state office has always been very clear on the fact that members need to come to service to serve, and that it needs to be very important that this is more than an employment opportunity, and that commitment to serve is what we have seen get members through, you know, what really is a challenging year. I mean, the work that we ask VISTAs to accomplish is not easy work. If it was easy, we wouldn't need them to do it, right? So as you embark on capacity building, it is a challenging year. Also, you know, obviously they're living at the poverty level, and so for all those reasons, I say that commitment to service is key, and that's where we start our recruitment, is by ensuring that, and then having all of those other things in place. High priority at the agency, supervisor who is empowered to do their job and takes on their responsibility very seriously and gives their time to the member. And when you do those things, coupled with the coaching that y'all mentioned, you can get VISTAs over those hurdles, and we've seen so many members grow personally and professionally and really take the work at their sites to a higher level.
Great, thank you so much, and that was such a great note to end on. And I hope I hope the whole webinar gave you some great tools for managing your VISTAs and working with your intermediaries. So once again, thank you for attending this webinar, and we hope you can join us on our next webinar. It'll be OSOP Makeover, so effective ways to refresh and customize your on-site orientation and training. This will be on July 30th at 2 p.m. Eastern. We know there are a lot of questions on this webinar, so if you do have any further questions about where you can find resources or just any general questions about the content, please email us at vistawebinars@cns.gov. And thank you, and I'll have a great rest of your day.